You are listening to the Mary Jane Society podcast, where you will meet entrepreneurs, cultivators, scientists, doctors, and inventors in the cannabis industry.
I'm your host, Pam Schmiel, a marketer and publicist in the cannabis industry. Today we meet Michael Sassano, a former Wall Street banker turned real estate developer that is known in the U.S. for building 16 large-scale cultivation facilities in Nevada. He left for Europe in 2019 to get a head start in the European cannabis market and launched Somai, a cannabinoid pharmaceutical company based in Lisbon, Portugal. Michael shares their strategy and readiness for Europe's impending cannabis legalization and his predictions for 2024. Let's welcome Michael Sassano. The company and how you're doing it. And I think a lot of people over here would love to hear that as well. If you could just give us an overview of, Somai's, company overview and their capabilities, where you stand now, just so we can get place ourselves in the market over there.
Great to be back here. And just to give you a little update, so Somai Pharmaceuticals, which is we're now currently ranked the largest and most innovative manufacturing facility in the EU and global community for EU GMP qualified medicinal cannabis products. Has now expanded with the largest portfolio of products. We currently have 60 made today, with another 30 on its way into Q1 of this year. And our products are now reaching with our own distribution and sales, which we own in Australia. You will also see two of the number one and two largest extract deals in all of Europe with Germany. One is a 10 million euro deal with Grünhorn and a 5 million deal with Canify, which is the old Tilray people. And then you will also hear coming up soon our deals in the UK, and Poland was already announced previously. The markets are entering the product, I believe, within the country within the next month or two. They're slated to enter. So think of the process of where we're at. We manufacture the products, we get them registered, they're medicinal level pharmaceutical grade cannabis products, and then we distribute to all the main countries. And so as of now, it's Australia, Germany, UK, and Poland, with the addition soon of Italy and Brazil.
What is the update on medical research and what people are using this for? Yeah, what are people using it for? So you're saying you have 60 plus 30 coming, different formulations. Is it all being used for, obviously for medical reasons only, because Europe is medical only? So
yeah, that's correct. Europe is medical only. A doctor has to prescribe it. A pharmacy has to dispense it. And the largest indication is pain. So, in that 225-page document I read last night from the HHS, pain, not that we all didn't know it here and we all weren't aware of it, but, having the HHS put that in black and white was very clear. It's still the largest category here. And there's also many more indications, similar to the document pointed out, at least 15 other indications. Of course, there's cancer 3, nausea related usages, the more serious ones, but also here you see a lot of in the mental area, stress, anxiety, and sleep even. Not that these are clinically proven, but these happen to be indications that doctors are prescribing for. So, similar to, all the countries, even in the US, doctors are prescribing for these, and pain is still the number one category.
right. And do you have patents on some of the formulations?
We don't. We have a patent in process on our faster absorbing product. That's also something that comes with PK studies, and we'll be doing a human clinical trial. And so in order to get a patent, like as an example, if I wanted to get a patent on a 10 for 10 sensor formulation, I would have to show something novel to the process and also the medicine. However, you're using basic ingredients, CBD extract, THC extract, and the combination there too with MCT oil or olive oil or whatever excipient base you want doesn't necessarily qualify for a patentable product because it's a common usage form. However, for faster acting formulations, which we're doing, which might be common in US products, over here, these processes can be patented and that formulation patented. So yes, where we can find our spots, we are, and definitely we would like to have some protection if we're going to announce these.
Right. I do know that there is a company here, Curio Wellness, who has a patent on the bioavailability or the mechanism, however it is to get into the body. So things like that. Okay. I did read that you have a partnership with the UK on a large scale medical cannabis study. Is this a significant study that's coming out, or just more of kind of what you just said, really, about the benefits of
Yeah,
what?
so I think what you're referring to is the T21 project. This is an amazing organization that has really been dedicated to advocacy of cannabis and the science of cannabis. It's filled with really, really great scientists, Mike Barnes, Anna Schlag, quite a few. I don't want to name them all, but they're a great group to support. Now that we are entering the market of the UK with the largest portfolio, being with T21 and finding observational trial paths within the UK community is definitely an area we need to be at. We're looking through which ones we should choose. Some of my ideas, I'm not a scientist, they not necessarily the way the scientists would like to go. And on the other end, the scientists sometimes need a little more of a commercial aspect. So we're looking through a few different observational studies. I'll be there next week going over this with them, and we hope to have some news what we've chosen soon, but nothing chosen yet, but we will do one. We have to do one, and we want to support the UK. But remember, globally, we need to choose observational trials in jurisdictions also. So we don't want to do 2 sleep studies. If we're doing one with one group, we would like to have a different one in another country. So some of this is less, let's say, results orientated to something that's important to that country, and more, okay, we're doing this already in Australia. Let's do something different over here, and try to measure that up. Yeah.
Right,
Plus, a
right.
lot of people have done trials on drops, sensors, where we have other form factors, sprays, or a gel caps. And so, possibly doing those studies with different form factors might be more advantageous to the community to understand adoption of different delivery methods, because not everyone wants to put the liquid in their mouth, or they want to carry it with them throughout the day. And a gel cap might be more they want information on. So we have to weigh all those possibilities.
And it seems like the UK, you don't hear any talk about the UK making any movement into the recreational market, but they seem to be kind of leading the pack a little bit. You always hear about them doing clinical trials and making some movement in the research. Is that right? That you see that?
I mean, we always have to look at, I always have my insider approach to the look. In one way, you do have progressives pushing that way. On another way, it's the hardest rules to operate in currently. And I'll explain to you what I mean by that. They have right now, in order to get a cannabis prescription, the current law and regulatory framework, you have to try, if you had back pain as an example, chronic back pain, and you would have to try 3 different methods of therapy before you can get approved to use cannabis. This is arduous at best.
Yeah, very
Yeah,
different.
and
That's
very difficult.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't say it, but you did. But yeah, you know,
Wow.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
tough one. Whereas if you take Australia or Germany as an example, the two larger markets within this space, we have any GP can prescribe it for a multiple amount of indications, including stress, anxiety, other less critical, let's say, indications. I don't want to diminish them, but okay, it's not cancer 3, multiple sclerosis, or others. In that respect, any GP as a first line treatment can just say, okay, cannabis is good for you. On the other side, they're opening up clinics in that countries that largely resemble early days in America, where you would get your card and be able to go into a dispensary. And so these clinics are more aggressive to treat the ailment that you have. Even when I walk into them, I explain to them, and they're ready to help me, and they have knowledge of the product. So in one large degree, the GPs may not be as knowledgeable or up to date as these clinics. And then as a tertiary line, similar dispensary style pharmacies are starting to pop up, like in Australia. And they've been in Germany to some extent too, where actually the staff is more inclined to explain to you what cannabis product is better for you. If you come in with a prescription, they can sway you one way or another to a product. And they were very reminiscent, although they're pharmacies and that's the law, they act like dispensaries that we know of in the United States. And I would say, more these, like Germany is acting more progressively now, especially with the concept of their narcotic derivation coming off, the advent of social clubs. Czechia, the former Czech Republic, just announced recently a similar kind of program. So I think the way you'll bottle these up as things go on is some people will be more on the medical side and more strict about it. Others, like Germany, Czechia, Malta, they'll have social clubs attached with a more liberal application of the indications.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's very interesting patchwork over there that's happening of how they're doing it. So I'm just curious as far as your strategy of how when you first left the United States, where you built out, I believe, 16 cultivation facilities, seed to sale here, and going over to the Europe to be a first mover in the market, might not have known that Germany was going to be kind of a place you needed to get into to start moving in the European market, and now you are in. Was that your first strategy, your first thought about going into the European market when you went over there and set up shop in Portugal?
Yeah, so I mean, let's say there's two parts to it. One would be, what was I well known for is constructing these facilities in the early days of the United States. And I thought to myself, there's a lack of infrastructure in Europe. Definitely, I could use the skills for constructing a facility in order to service what will be the second largest cannabis market. And it will, without a doubt, over the next few years, it will graduate to number 2 and oversee Canada. The other side was, how do I bring products that make sense for the community? And extracts didn't exist when I first came here, and I had to convince people that they were coming. The first initial extracts 2 years ago were very crude and rudimentary products. Still some that exist today. Actually, they do exist today. I mean, these are crude oil extracts with tremendous amounts of plant material and non-essentials.
Mm.
And not only, are some of the things not needed, it just tastes horrible. And if you're going to take something every day, you just don't want it tasting bad. And, as the trying to understand, what products are needed, I had to extrapolate and say to myself, let's make an understanding what is today, what is better today that we can offer, what's going to be tomorrow, because tomorrow's going to come, and then what's going to be the future. And the future is easy to see if you look at the United States or BDS analytics, even if you don't, even if you haven't participated, or you just go visit a dispensary and ask the bud tenders what's the best products, what are people using them for? There's lots of resources. There's, and even the Canadian report they come out with every year explaining the usages of medical marijuana to their population. That's a beautiful 200-page report. There's a lot of data out there to explain the future. So what in that quest, it became, apparent I had to make more products than everybody and not try to conform to what people were telling me was the one-size-fits-all pharmaceutical model that they're used to. And, coming from America, we want selection in our dispensaries. And we don't even need to have our own products. We could have others' products. So we play well with the other, people in the zoo. And,
Yes.
trying to tell everyone I'm making 60 products this year first was shocking to everybody and not
Yeah.
believable. Yeah, no,
I thought that seemed like a lot, but I wasn't sure. Okay.
nobody wanted to believe it. Nobody wanted to understand why I'm spending the money to make so many products. And so now, they understand because we're showing it piece by piece. Today is your basic, let's say, sativa extracted, MCT oil based sensor. It tastes better than the current markets. You don't need to be, drinking all of these plant materials that make no sense. In fact, if you really love terpenes, I got a next generation of terpene enhanced products for you. If that's the why you think bad tasting oil should taste like that. So, in formulation, we can have more exact formulations of terpenes rather than randomized terpenes from dried flower, which is minimal at best. So I said, okay, here's today, and tomorrow I'm going to make you this. And then the future, that may become a live resin or a live rosin product. It may even be a concentrate, which I believe is more medical than a vaporizer. And we didn't even think vaporizers. Everybody was saying last year, why are you making vaporizers and putting them in stability? Because from the day I make the product till it's able to be sold is 1 year, because I need a shelf life. And I said, I think doctors want something other than flour to administer. They're not comfortable signing a prescription for that. I'm making it. And guess what? This year, Australia and Germany both announced vaporizers. And yeah, and we signed a global deal with a US vaporizer company, AeroPro. So, in essence, these products that I thought were going to be the future are actually already today, because there's a $32 billion market called the United States that tells us what consumer preference wants and what's helping people. And I think there's a place for all of these products, but we need to make sure as a company in Europe that we service the new countries as well as the more mature countries. So somebody who comes on and wants the basics, well, I have that for you. And I have it in sativa, indica, hybrid formation, whereas everybody may be just blending flowers and saying, here's your extract. Well, I'm telling you where that flower came from, giving you the minor cannabinoid count, and telling you the terpenes that are in it, so you can make a more educated guess, and that product will always be the same. So in one sense, what sounds simple to us in the United States, individual strain extracts, was not something that was very unknown to them. And one product could be 3 products when you break it down like that. And it could be, somebody may not just want a 10 for 10, they may want different dosages, and the gel cap, you got to have a whole range.
Right. And the patches, I mean, it's not only in the medical market with the patches and all this kind of stuff, but you're right, even in the recreational market, I'm constantly seeing innovation on different, different takes, different nuances on a particular consumption method. It's really amazing, the innovation that's coming out. So wow, that's so interesting. So I know, I believe that Germany is a really hard market to crack, to get into, as far as getting distribution and things like that. And it's a real hot market, and a lot of eyes and a lot of people, in Canada, companies in Canada, or have been trying to get into that market. How tough was that for you? I mean, you seem to have made two really amazing deals and partnerships with Canamed and Gruhorn. Um, is that starting yet, and how did you do that?
Let's break it down by product category, then I'll break it down by timing, and I think both are significant. You have the flower market where Canadian flower can actually come over to Europe. It has to be transformed into EU GMP, so it has to be packaged and properly designated GMP, but it can start off as GACP flower and be transported. So Canada was always the leader while Europe was developing their cultivation sites. Now you have product coming in that's great. Did a big piece on South Africa, some great growers down there,
Yeah.
Colombia, Uruguay. There's some great growers that are getting here. However, right, the U.S. market, they can't move that flower out of that border right now. And the few DEA licenses that were given, these are smaller and mostly dedicated towards R&D in the United States, not really mass sale over here in Europe. And so you have a robust flower market, which occupies about 80% of the current sales. 2 years ago or 1 year ago, if I would have said, and this goes to timing, if I would have said, look, I want a big extract deal, people would have laughed because there was no extract market and it wasn't very interesting. Now it's 20% of these markets, or in Australia, it's almost 30% and growing. And they're not growing this way, they're growing this way. And doctors prefer to prescribe them. But what do they want? They want more education and they want better products. They don't want bad tasting products. Sativex is the prime example of the worst tasting product out there. And I hate to be negative on GW, but it's just bad tasting.
Mhm.
And so, they want better taste, they want better economics, and they want better form. They want the effect to be better. The golden triangle: cost, taste, and effect.
Mm.
So they need to advance their products. Well, we arrived when the market was taking off and people were starting to pay attention to extracts. We arrived with the largest array of products. So the largest number one company, Grunhorn Canamed, and also the Canify group, which was, the Tilray guys, Tilray still the number one group of extract in Germany. They saw what we had done and they understood today, tomorrow, and the future is already here. These guys know what they're doing. They brought the US know-how, and the product is as pharmaceutical as Merck or Pfizer could make. So our grade and our quality is above standard. Our facility is above standard, fully automated in every way, from gel cap lines to packaging lines to drops and spray lines to even our vaporizer line is automated now. So, we've invested heavily into proper automation to expand globally, not just to one country, but to all of them. And Germany saw that quality standard and accepted us. And that's why we nailed it. It was a lot of timing. It was having the best products. And it was that their knowledge base was opening to what we had to present to them.
Mm. And you always hear Tilray seems to kind of get a bad rap in the news as far as, a company, but it just seems like they're the ones really making the moves over in Europe. And
To some degree, they're a partner of ours. We try to partner with all the best in the industry. There's not many of them over here. Tilray is clearly the number one extract by a 10x in Germany. They have different positions in the UK and Australia, but in Germany, they are the leader. And this could be because they were first. They have a monster facility. They have a lot of money, and they've been out there. We just recently hired the head of marketing from Tilray, to expand us globally. They're good friends. They're good partners to us. But they also have different objectives, right? They have Canada. They have beer now. They have Europe. They have just regular pharmaceutical distribution in Europe too, like antibiotics and aspirins. So they're kind of a mixed bag, whereas we're just more finely dedicated to one craft of making the most extract products. Whereas I believe they will always be a leader in Germany because of their name recognition. There is place for the newer innovative products where we lie, and these kind of the contracts we just signed into predicts a over 10% penetration just this year of that market, and that's pretty good. If Tilray's got over half, they have well over 3/4 of the total market, so it's their race to lose, and their position to chip away at for new people. And there's place for all of us. We need more, not less people. I don't look at people's competitors. They fill a void that's needed because there's still a lot of outreach that's needed. It's just the beginning.
Yeah, it's true. So I'm not, maybe these two questions kind of wrap into each other, but what is like additional infrastructure that you think is needed either by Somai or just in general for the European community to move forward? And then what is the overview of the European market outlook for 2024? I'm not sure if that kind of goes together, but what do they need as far as infrastructure, or maybe what are your plans for Somai and then to move ahead for 2024 in the European community?
I'm going to make them go together.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's look at it from two perspectives. There's over 30,000 license sets in the United States to make a market like that. And there's a larger population in Europe that strongly believes in herbal medicines as opposed to pharmaceutical medicines. And so if you look at the demographics of Europe comparatively to the US, and you juxtapose the amount of facilities, well, guess how many facilities are here? There's maybe 60, 80 that can service this entire region. If you go global, 100, mostly all cultivations. If you boil that down to extract groups, maybe there's 20, maybe there's 30, but if you boil it down to who has capabilities to produce advanced products, and I'm not even talking very advanced, I'm just saying, something a little more than API extract. So I'm just giving you distillate. Well, now you're down to 10, maybe 11, and then who can produce finished form dosage forms? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like this. So you really have a tremendous shortage of infrastructure here. If you look to the global market from cultivations, maybe we're okay in the near term. A facility like Tilray's at 300,000 square feet is about 10% utilized. So they have a lot of upside to go. So there's a lot of big facilities that are underutilized that can jump in there on cultivation. But extraction, you're highly underutilized for what's going to happen. And if it goes like the United States to 2/3 extractable products, whether it's vapes, concentrates, things, you are heavily underutilized. So there needs to be an expansion of infrastructure just on the basic format, down low, cultivation, production. Now you need to advance on a regulatory framework. You have countries that are announcing at the start of this year, 6 countries alone, well, some a little flow over from last year, but about 6 countries that made some announcements that they're moving forward. Spain, if you were to see one of my articles 7 months ago, the Spanish health minister pretty much said there is no clinical evidence to prove that cannabis is efficacious in medicine. Just a week ago, the new health minister came in and said, we will have our plans for medical cannabis in Spain in the next month or two that will be along the lines of global, the quote is global standards for cannabis, which is pretty much signaling a medical approach to cannabis, not a recreational for sure. And that's pretty logical with how they were trying to go previous to the last announcement 7 months, if that makes sense to you. So they flip-flopped, and now they're back on the medical program again. And that's a major country to come in. France just announced that they're going to extend a new program that will start in 2025. That's something that's significant. Germany, we expect come this February, the narcotics derivations coming off. There will be social clubs approved, and they will proceed to a second pillar by 2025 of US-style dispensaries. Chesnia, I already told you, they announced a similar program, just like Germany. Albania came out last year. Japan just came out and said, hey, we're going to derivate the CBD and also regulate the cultivation of cannabis plants and give you guidance as to THC levels. So that was a big step to get clarity from there. Thailand keeps jumping back and forth. We don't know if they're rec or they're medical. I don't think they know, but that's fine. But then you have others, that are going to come out with rulings very shortly. And I believe, and I wrote this, and I'm going to say it again, and with the newest information that came out on Friday and last night, reading all 225 pages and making my notes, the largest country in the world with the most advanced health system, with the largest budget for health, who previously wanted to ignore medical usages of cannabis, said right in the report, and I make this brief, it's safe and it works for pain, and they highlighted that, potentially Crohn's, and at least 15 others. I said that earlier, but this is key. At least. I mean,
yeah, I know. It's happening. I mean, we are hanging with bated breath. It's going to come. It's very exciting.
I believe every regulator in every country who was thinking about cannabis or not thinking about cannabis woke up, sent this memo to all of their people and said, come back to me with the report. And I want it on my desk tomorrow in a meeting to discuss this, including Germany, who was going to go and who's going to take narcotic off. There was a little waffling there with the Conservative Party, but, at the end of the day, they're going to read this and say, look, it's safe and it works. And that's the end of that discussion anymore. And I think you'll even see, you'll see whether it was, and I don't want to say this, I'm just going to say it how I'm going to say it. Whatever was trying to stop this, whether it was big pharma that didn't want their opioids to be knocked off, here, pain is there. Sorry, it's the cat's out of the bag. Or whether the bad publicity, religious groups, I'm not sure what, but now they're going to look at it and say, wait a sec, do we want our pain alleviated by this pharmaceutical opioid, or is this derivation on marijuana going to open up those demographics that previously were shunning it? I believe this report is going to be a global like brush fire of medical cannabis around the globe. And countries that you never expected are going to say, we got to give access, at least for pain, at least for epilepsy.
So another wrap-in final question, I guess, is what are your next steps now that you've conquered Germany, got your foot in the door? You're a big player there, obviously. What is what opportunities, M&A opportunities, do other countries, other companies have in the European market? And what is your next step now that you really have made a big step into Germany?
It's so complicated launching just 4 countries. Imagine different language, different regulatory frameworks, different regulators we have to deal with, different distribution paths, different marketing. It's so complicated. And so we took out the largest countries, and we have to be patient with ourselves and develop, not just the manufacturing capabilities, even though we're automated, we still have to train people. We're in massive growth spurt. We like each week there's 5, 6 new positions opening up, and integrating that is very complicated. Getting that to a point where you're making true pharmaceutical perfect products and they're the same every single time, is a big challenge. And I think, like, if I was to imagine, let's say we get it all down packed on the manufacturing levels, and we get it all down packed on the distribution levels, we still got to come into new countries tomorrow and open them up. a whole new, you know,
And here we talk about in the United States, everybody's, struggling with the state by state expansion plans. I mean, I see all the different brands and companies. I mean, I can't even imagine what you're going through on a country by country basis. You're doing that on a country by country basis. We're
yes.
doing it on a state by state under a similar structure. So that's, I mean, I didn't look at it that way, but wow, that's a mountain to climb.
In one way, we're quite lucky because I don't have to keep investing in infrastructure state by state. And then I have to develop management lines state by state. I have one central manufacturing, and then we develop our sales country by country. But at least in America, if you go from Texas to New York, they speak the same language, only
Yeah.
maybe only different politics, but it's still the
Yeah.
same language.
Yeah. Well, but wait, so you can ship, so you can have one distribution point and you can ship it. So that's what you're doing, obviously.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
okay. Okay.
licensed,
I didn't think about that.
which is so complicated because keep in mind, when I was addressing Nevada as an example, well, I'm addressing, a strip or maybe North Nevada, so transportation and logistics is simple, sales is simple. You're addressing a few key areas. California would be much more complex, but imagine California times, 20 I'm trying to address. So I had to make the production facility so it can expand, and it could expand both internally and with equipment. And we are the most expandable, and we're already at a level where we could supply all of Europe today if we had to take over all production. But we have to be able to supply all of these countries. So expanding and then expanding your sales
Yeah.
staff to get the word out.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy. So I guess to wrap it up, maybe you answered the question before about what is needed in the infrastructure over there and with the extraction facilities and whatnot. But are there any M&A opportunities? A lot of people will be listening here, running different companies here. Like what would be any M&A opportunities that you see over there for the American companies to try to jump into the European market now that it really seems like it could be taking off?
Well, first they got to beat me to the M&A because I'm in the middle of buying a company right now. So
Okay. No, I know. I mean, you're one to follow for sure.
so they got to do that first, or they could come over here and buy me, eventually. So,
Yeah.
if they
There
have
you
the
go. There you go. You're setting it up. I'll tell you. Yes, yeah.
I think the first steps for the US companies are going to be branded companies coming, like AeroPro deal coming to us, and we'll be able to bring them on a global standard and have a product that's a global standard for country by country things. Because once we make it here, we could sell to all the other countries. I think this is a good first step. I think the US companies, they're really concentrated and entrenched in their regions. You saw groups like Curaleaf peel out of 3 states already. They need to kind of get above that one. Of course, we need better regulation. It's silly that they're still not safe banking or anything. They're tying the hands ridiculously. So these things, these things got to come off. And then they're going to come look over here, and they're going to come in, and we're going to talk, and I'm going to show them, here's what we got in this. Where, we have the cultivation, the production, the regulatory framework, and their decision will be, do I buy that or do I make it myself and take 3 years to build it
Yeah.
and get to the point? And I think what you're seeing is Canadian companies are very used to the global markets. Organigram has a great footprint of distribution globally. But it's clear for them because they could bring flower from Canada here, whereas the US, they won't be able to bring their products here. Organigram can't bring their extracts here because they're not EU GMP, but they could bring their flower and transform it here to EU GMP. US cannot do that. So they have only one choice to enter, is to capture an existing model that makes sense.
Or maybe as a brand, like you said, coming from the United States that wants to enter the market would use your company as a white label manufacturer. Would that be?
Yeah, we
And
don't,
the future.
we're not, yeah, we're not, we were our own brand, so we're not necessarily a white labeler, but for the big brands of the US, we definitely want partnerships with them.
Yeah,
So,
that's,
yeah,
yeah,
so we
yeah,
definitely believe, like Wana brands, we would love, some of the big brands that are independent to want
yeah.
to come here that have proven stability and great finance. Definitely, we want to service them.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael. It was really great to see you again. And I really, honestly, I read all of your articles and I really appreciate you